Hey Larry,
Hi, Dan. Don, how are you?
good. How are you doing?
Very well.
So I think we have Andrew who's running this show for us. That's good.
That always helps.
Yeah, it does.
I take it we're the first two?
We are. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So are you all screened in there, Don, or?
Yeah, actually, it's we had this done a number of years ago, and of course, it's worked out super, but it's also spoiled us a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I had never noticed you slapping away mosquitoes, so
yeah, no, no, I actually, it depends on time of day, but I usually end up out at on the front porch. Um, sorry, I'm just doing I was trying to connect with someone earlier and they didn't connect and now anyway,
yeah.
give me
Oh,
one second.
that's fine.
Okay.
Hi, Dawn. Hi, Larry.
Hey, how you doing, Patty?
Hey, Patty.
Hi.
Okay. So Patty, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Going back to work next month.
Uh-oh.
The party's over.
The party's over. Oh, you going over to Rennie's?
Yeah,
That's super.
had a nice summer off.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna try this tonight. I've been so spoiled by my iPad. I've been doing all my Zooms on it, but it's sometimes it doesn't work quite right, and that I can't see everybody. So I'm using my wife's
Yep.
um, her MacBook Air, which I keep trying to use my fingers, and it's not a touch screen. Right? So I sit there and I'm
Yeah.
thinking, why isn't it working, right? And then I have to think of the operator. Anyway, I'm just going to get something to prop my feet up.
Get comfy.
That happens with me with my daughter's school laptop,
Yeah.
where she has me looking at something or reading something that she wrote, and so I think, well, it's Apple. And so I tried moving it, and she goes, "Dad, it's not a touch screen."
I absolutely, it just feels, it seems like it should be, but.
Feels like it should be, right?
So. But the iPad's amazing, but it's on some of this stuff like Zooms, you can, I think you can see up to 9 people, then you have to scroll to look at the rest of the people. But I was in a meeting this morning, which was on GoToMeeting, and I could only pull up like the first 6 people, and I couldn't see anybody else, and I couldn't scroll or do anything else.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, there's Tommy.
Well, I'm not sure how to get all people on my screen.
Well, I'm counting on this working on this screen, but I can't tell you for sure whether it does or doesn't. But according to this, we have, I see 6, but there's 10 participants.
Hi, Patty. How you doing?
Hi, okay, Tom, thank you. Hanging in there.
Good.
Evening, Tom.
Larry, how are you?
Very well. How about yourself?
That's Ducky. Very, very good.
Well, that's good. All right, guys, we have a quorum. This is good. Scott, welcome.
Yeah, my screen just flips back and forth between who's calling, who's talking, I mean.
Yeah, there's on the iPad anyway, there's a setting where you have it work on, or it'll move to that person. And I haven't.
I prefer the Brady Bunch look.
We'll have to figure out how to get that, Scott.
Yeah, see,
I wish I could tell you. It just comes up automatically on mine.
Oh, I just got it, actually.
oh, you know what I just did? Scott, you were talking, and so it put all the other people on the right side.
I see. Now I have 4, though. Oh, now I have 5.
I show a total of 7 with the 2 planners.
Me too. Dawn, have you heard from Josh or Bruce?
I have not, or Ron. There's Josh. There you go. You ask, and he's there.
Ask and you shall receive.
Hey, Bruce, welcome aboard.
Thanks. How you doing?
Good. And Josh, you're still secret, but welcome aboard too. We'll get started in 1 minute, guys. Okay, it's 7 p.m. I'm going to open the Thompson Planning Board. What we're going to do is go ahead and have a formal session for a bit to go through the roll of the minutes and take a vote on the minutes. And then we will adjourn to workshop, and we'll be doing a workshop on Crooker as has been published. So that being said, Patty, can you please take the roll?
I will. Don Span,
Present?
Ronald Bisson, Larry Brand,
Present.
Scott Libby,
Present.
Joshua Spooner, Tom Thompson,
Present?
Bruce Van Oat.
Present.
All present except Mr. Bisson.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So I believe, and Rod, you or Andrew, correct me, we have two sets of minutes. One dated the 21st, one dated the 23rd. Is that correct?
That would be correct, Don, yes.
Okay, so we can take them one at a time or both. It's whatever the board chooses. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion?
Well, I'll move that we approve the minutes of July 21 and July 23rd, 2020 as written.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, they're approved. Andrew, I got a text from Ron, said he didn't get a number to sign in. Can you please forward him that email you just sent out, that reminder?
Yeah, I will. I'll resend the invitation again. It'll be going to his standard email address.
Yeah, I guess that's the best we can do. Thank you. All right, so I will, unless there's anything else for the formal meeting, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
John, this is Josh. Just real quick, just a note, Patty, I'm abstaining on that vote, of course, for the minutes.
Okay, thanks, Josh.
Thanks.
All right, so do we have a motion to adjourn and go to workshop?
I move that we adjourn and go to workshop.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Patty, please stick around to take notes from the workshop. Thanks.
Definitely.
Yes, and your notes have been excellent. Thank you very much, Patty.
Thank
All
you.
right, so we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Hearing no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, motion's approved. So let's go right to the workshop. And I think what I'd like to do here is basically consistent with what we did the last meeting. Let staff walk through kind of the process that we're going to be following as far as this is concerned. So Andrew, are you doing that?
I am. Yeah, I will. I'll speak real quickly about the public input portion of this session. Although the workshop is a conversation between the board and the applicant landowner, the planning board has reserved time at each workshop to hear from the public on the topics at hand. If you're interested in speaking to the board, please wait until the chairman opens the public comment session. When the public session is opened, please raise your hand in the chat function. That'll alert me that you're interested in speaking. The meeting facilitator will promote you to a panelist so that you can turn on your camera and microphone. Please provide your name and address for the record. After you're done speaking, you will be shifted back to a meeting attendee. There are 32 registered attendees for this workshop and currently 22 people in the room. Since we have a large number of interested members of the public, please keep your comments to less than 3 minutes and limited to the topics at hand. The workshop is intended to end by 9 o'clock. If necessary, the board will consider extending the meeting beyond. All meeting materials for this session and future sessions of the board related to the Crooker rezoning request are available at topsamaine.com/Crooker. In addition to the meeting materials, directions are provided to submit comments in advance of meetings. Comments are compiled on a weekly basis and posted once a week on Fridays. I believe that wraps it up for me, Don. If you want to move on into the applicant's presentation.
Okay, thanks. And there was a question in regards to the number of attendees at the last session. Do you recall what that number was?
I do not, but I can find out and let you know by the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will move into the next phase of this discussion. So I think Reagan and Frank, you are both with us. If you would please go through your information and presentation.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
I do have a PowerPoint to share, and so I will try and get that on the screen right now. Okay, I'm getting a message that says that the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Rod or Andrew, is there a way that my PowerPoint can be shown on the screen?
Yep, hang tight. Let me see what I can do.
Andrew, we can just switch it to all panelists right now.
Go for it, Rod.
Reagan, try it now.
I know. All right. Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Good evening, members of the Planning Board. My name is Reagan LaRochelle, and I'm here tonight again with Frank O'Hara. Tonight, we're discussing the approach that we've developed based on feedback we received during the last meeting and working with the Planning Board to draft the new zoning for the proposed Crooker site. We've provided the following materials in advance of the meeting, and these materials were created in response to your request during the last meeting that we heard from you.
And Reagan, this is the presentation that's currently on the website as well, correct?
Yes, yes, it was posted by us town staff.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So the materials provided we're starting with the overview of Crooker's move to their proposed location, which will show you the layout of their current site, as well as an overview of the different areas that we're discussing as a frame of reference. We've developed maps that show the property that Crooker owns at the proposed site, as well as the properties that we would consider be rezoned with the new zoning ordinance being developed. We're offering a letter from Frank O'Hara dated August 7th that talks about the updated approach to developing this resource-based zoning ordinance. And we also provided a letter from Crooker CEO Tom Sturgeon responding to questions about the reuse of the very prominent property in the center of Topsom, which they currently have their site. So to start, we'll be looking at an overview of the properties. The first slide shows how the current operations are laid out at 103 Lewiston Road. We can see areas for rock crushing, the batch plant, equipment shops, and storage. And so again, this is their current site. The next slide shows, just to give you context as to where certain areas show up on a map. This is an overview of the area, including the current Crooker site on the lower right, which, if they are able to move, would become a new mixed-use redevelopment right off Interstate 295. The proposed new location for Crooker is slightly to the left of center on the map, and it's generally shown with the blue oval there. We also added for reference the Crooker Quarry, shown just below the proposed location and currently accessed by Crooker by traveling down Lewiston Road, taking a left onto River Road, and bearing right onto Quarry Road. Finally, there was some references to Jack's Pit at our last meeting, which we can see at the top left of the map. Here we can see the property owned by Crooker currently, and it's shaded, has the design on it shaded in blue. There are 14 parcels on this map that are owned by Crooker. We can also see on this map the CMP property cutting through the middle and all the way up to Lewiston Road, and then past it across the road. On this slide, we have the outline of the properties that we would propose be included in the newly created zone, with Crooker's property still shaded in the blue pattern. Are there any questions at this point? If not, I'll just keep on going.
I don't think so. Go ahead.
Okay, great. There were questions in the last meeting about the site plan for the new Crooker location, and we wanted to be clear that at this stage, those plans from 2018 are no longer the basis of our redevelopment plan. So as part of this process, Crooker is waiting to see how the zoning plays out and what criteria are in place with this new zoning ordinance before creating even a general site plan for the property. So we're really looking at a fresh start and different from the 2018 materials that people may have seen. We did want to offer a response to questions that were raised at the last meeting about the site, the proposed site and layout, and we're able to definitively provide the following information on this chart, that there would be six types of operations that could be located on the proposed site. The first is the processing of material, specifically crushing rocks. It's anticipated that this activity would take up to 15 to 20 acres, and it would likely be located closer to the quarry side of the site. Factors to mitigate would be noise and dust. Next, we have storage, which would include material used for asphalt as well as equipment. And it's anticipated that this would again take 15 to 20 acres and be located near the processing part of the property. And a factor to mitigate would be the dust from the stored materials. The batch plant is where the asphalt is processed. That would take 2 to 3 acres and would need access to Route 196, Lewiston Road. Factors to mitigate would include noise, odor, and landscape buffering. The office would take up about 1 acre and need access to 196. A factor to take into consideration would again be landscape buffering. The shops on the site are used for equipment maintenance and would take up to 2 to 3 acres. This would likely be near the processing area, and a factor to mitigate would be landscape buffering. Finally, parking would consume 5 to 6 acres and could be placed in a variety of locations on the site. And again, the factor to consider would be landscape buffering. Again, Crooker looks forward to being able to provide more of a plan once the ordinance is completed and site studies are done and can be taken into account in their planning process. Just to reiterate some benefits of this location, again, the development of this large property at the gateway of Topsom will only be able to occur if Crooker is able to relocate to a place that makes their work more efficient and cost effective. There have been discussions during the comp plan process and on Crooker's end with the prospective developers, and site plans and other ideas have been considered for this site. Other benefits include the mitigation of the dangerous intersection at Lewiston Road and Meadow Cross Road, the Crooker traffic being taken off River Road, and also reduced traffic on Lewiston Road for their haul trucks. The redevelopment of their current sites, as well as the development of their proposed site, would result in more taxes to the town of Topsom with that new property being utilized. Crooker has talked about providing trail access along the Androscoggin and other locations in town, working with the town and other groups on that. And finally, the reduced emissions from trucks traveling on Lewiston Road with the proximity of their proposed site being closer to their quarry. So that is my portion of the presentation. And I think.
Would you like questions or any discussion on that portion now, or would you rather wait till Frank is done?
No, I think we can do that now.
Okay, I guess I'll open to the board. Tommy or Scott or Bruce or Josh or Larry, any of you guys have any comments you'd like to make or questions so far? Tommy?
I'd like to ask, how many parcels of land are included in the new zone which aren't owned by Crooker?
I'm only counting here, including CMP. It looks like there would be 6.
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
These properties obviously are owned by somebody else. Have those people been contacted as far as being included in something like this? We have a buy-in from people that own these other properties?
Not to my knowledge, no. CMP, there has been discussions with CMP.
I would add, Tom, I just would add, this could be done, the ordinance could be done as an overlay zone approach, which would have an ordinance and then have at a later point, the negotiate, what are the boundaries of it and ownership and those kinds of questions. So this is a sort of our best estimate at this point, but it's not written in stone. There's still, discussion that can take place here.
Okay, but on your map, it
Yes.
shows that there are parcels that some people are not happy with.
Right. And I think that the company, I think if that was, if that group, I think there's some negotiations about purchase of different property and so forth going on. And if that wasn't possible, that didn't work, I think the zone could be adjusted.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you have something else, Tommy?
No,
Okay, Bruce, did you have something?
Talk about reduced traffic, Lewiston Road. Is there, I know there is no set development, but there is, target property, that you're talking about, that you showed on the map. I'm wondering about overall change in traffic, not just on one particular piece, but overall change in traffic. Anyway, order of magnitude. I'm sure if Crooker was talking about what they're hauling now from their pit now to where they're going now, you could calculate that, but overall, what would be traffic impacts? I mean, reduction in traffic of one kind of traffic coupled with an increase in another kind of traffic doesn't do anything beneficial to the town. So I'm wondering, well, that might not be true depending on the nature of the traffic, truck versus other, but anything of order of magnitude of either miles or NOx or anything that could give us some idea of the order of magnitude. I know it hasn't been calculated at this point, but I'm thinking from what I see there's enough for very rough origin destination type stuff to come up with something.
We could do that, Bruce. I don't think we haven't done the calculation of the total traffic. We have the estimates of the reduced truck driving back and forth from the current site to the proposed site, but haven't done the look at what's the overall traffic and on that strip. But we can do that and get that to you.
Yeah, I would just,
Yeah.
for given information that is more weighty, and this is following up on something I think Scott let off on, the last time we talked about this.
Yeah,
Look
percentage.
more globally.
Mm-hmm.
Look more globally.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Bruce, right now?
Not right now.
All right, Scott?
Well, it would, I could get this from the town planner or the website, just panning out from the proposed zoning a little bit and seeing how that particular zone relates to the industrial zone to the northwest, up the river and that kind of stuff. Just, it would be a better context for me, but I can superimpose it on a tax map, so I can do that myself.
Bruce, somebody, I think one of the commenters that has submitted some materials. I think that is in some of the materials that have been submitted by some of the public that Andrew has posted.
Yeah, I saw that. That's what actually led to the question. I just looking for someone. Like if Andrew and Rod tells me that that's an accurate map, I'm good.
Okay.
Good answer, Bruce. Thanks,
Yeah,
Larry.
I believe you're referencing Dan Flagg's maps, and he did base those on the 2015 zoning map. We've recently updated them, as in last week, so I can certainly put together a really quick map that shows kind of the general area outside of this proposal for you guys. I'll post that to the website tomorrow.
Good,
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, Scott, it looked like you had something.
Yeah, I actually was yelling to get someone to stop my dog from barking so I could come off mute. Yeah, I mean, Bruce took my main question. That was really getting to the traffic. I mean, we've heard about the trucks that are coming, from the pit to the facility back and forth. But obviously, Crooker knows the number of trucks that are going to the current facility to pick up product, and those trucks are going to be going from 295, 201. Brunswick, et cetera, coming across to and from the potential facility if it's built out there. So there's got to be a way to, develop that almost back of envelope. Eventually, if it gets to the point of site plan, obviously it'd be a traffic study, but seems like it should be something that can be calculated pretty readily. And when we're talking about the benefits, the other thing that came up was, we've talked about, or you've mentioned a number of times, a dangerous intersection at Lewiston Road and Meadowcross. It really would be interesting to know how that might be mitigated along the way. I know it probably doesn't, according to what I've seen you present, Frank, and maybe you're going to talk about it a little more in the zoning, it wouldn't be necessarily part of that. It would be later on in whatever site plan might be developed. But it kind of harkens back to Tom's question too. One of those properties that is not owned currently by Crooker, and from letters to the planning board and planning staff, it sounds like the person that owns that property between Crooker's parcels and 196 is not on board with this. So, unless that mitigation has a high bridge or something, or, it's all part of that issue. But I think it's probably getting away from your topic of trying to talk about this this new ordinance approach. It was good to hear, Reagan, about, leaving the 2018 plan behind and starting afresh. I've got some comments that I'll probably hold off on until after Frank's presentation, but I'm hoping that starting afresh maybe means, looking at that table you presented and potentially having some of those activities, not necessarily in the parcel that is between River Road and 196, and potentially some of them that are maybe more in line with what we categorize as industrial uses, maybe within the industrial zone still, and seeing if that is an option that might be on the table when you guys come back to us.
Great.
That's it.
I would just say that is definitely on the table. A lot of that crushing activity is good near the closer to the quarrying activity it is, the better it is for the process. And so definitely that would be, that'd be a possibility in terms of developing the master plan and we can get that back of the envelope type stuff. How many trucks are going out to, deliver product someplace and where they're going to be leaving from a different spot now than they were before. And so what's that increase in traffic versus the reduction of the other trucks going back and forth on the road? And we can give that, the ballpark thing. And finally, your other comment about, how the access was going to happen to 196. And, if this one owner doesn't want to do something, there have to be several options looked at in that. That have to be a cooperative owner someplace. And we could show at least options that we're looking at, but without having a final answer at this point.
Okay, good. Thank you, Bruce.
Just one last observation. 5 to 6 acres of parking. I mean, that's not the most intensive use that we're talking about here, so it's down on the list, but sounds like a lot of parking unless there's a lot of expansion, business expansion proposed in the future. Just an observation for what Crooker does now, and that's a lot of parking. So
there's a lot of parking at their current site. I mean, that was kind of the assembling of various parking spaces at their current site, but I agree the efficiency, that's not based on a parking study and not based on an expansion of the firm's activity. So we could look at that more carefully. I think probably
it may be
spaces.
It may include lay down or parking of heavy equipment and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So flat parking area. I got you. I was just thinking parking. Yep.
It is equipment as well as personal parking.
Okay, great. Yep.
Thanks. Let's let Tommy in.
You're calculating the truck situation. I would like to see you calculate all vehicles going in and out of that place, vendor vehicles, things of that nature, because there's more traffic than just the trucks. It's going to be, that could possibly be going out to the new place. That's going to impact the neighbors.
All right, Josh, do you have anything? I guess not. Okay, so.
No, I do not.
Josh?
I do not. Thank you, Don.
Okay, you're welcome. Frank, I think, and I don't want to get
Larry,
ahead.
did Larry have a comment or?
I raised my hand.
But if you have another comment, go ahead.
Oh, well, I did have a question regarding the proposed zoning, and I'm kind of wondering how that blacked in area or black surrounded area, because it looks like what I see anyway is that comes out all the way to Route 196. It also is now coming, that little upside down L-shaped piece coming all the way to River Road and incorporating some property in there. And I guess the question I have is why is it doing both of that? And my subsidiary question is, if this is a comprehensive approach to the Crooker process, why didn't it include the current quarry?
Okay, I can answer the last one, and Reagan, maybe you could talk a little bit about that little bump out that. And the reason about not incorporating the existing quarry was just making this issue that you're dealing with, the town's dealing with, as narrow as possible. In other words, activities are going on in the quarry now that are already regulated and approved and so forth. And to reopen a debate about what all those standards and what's going on there would be, didn't make sense. But the other side of the coin, though, Larry, was one that was brought up by Scott, which is it also, by not including that, also creates a little incentive for Crooker to locate as much stuff as it can on that other site where it's already in the industrial zone. So the structure of this zone creates some incentive for them for the company to locate things within that industrial area. But the master plan would have to take into account activities going on in adjacent land areas, and that'll have to be noted in the plan, in the language, you know, looking at beyond the border necessarily of the zone itself. And Reagan, do you want to comment on that other piece? I can't remember, was that office considerations or?
Yes, I think so. Larry, 2 of those properties are currently owned by Crooker in that little upside down L shape, which they did want to include in this proposed zone. And part of the thought process was buffering, I believe, and being able to have that space next to the R2 site. But the majority of what we're talking about is in that property near Lewiston Road that has kind of always been the topic of conversation in terms of placing the site. These other properties are more recently acquired by Crooker.
Well, I was going to say the upside down L is currently zoned R2, which does give the buffering to the industrial. So I'm not sure why rezoning that part of R2 to industrial gives you more buffering, but we'll wait and see, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So
Points. Mm-hmm.
it looks like we're up to 36 participants right now. Frank, like I said, I didn't want to get ahead of you, but I think Scott mentioned it. I'd be interested in your approach as far as the master plan.
Okay.
Are you going to be talking about that?
I was going to do that right now.
Okay, good.
Okay. Just quickly, I provided a memo that provides an outline of the approach we want to take. And also I want to talk a little bit about the adjusting the schedule that we originally provided. But the ordinance we're talking about is based on, would be modeled on your existing mixed-use commercial 1 zone near 295. And it involves really a 3-step process. The 3-step process is, first, establish all the facts in common to the extent that it's possible, that everybody's in agreement what the facts are, all the studies are in, the site is well understood, and then, you know, that's all agreed upon before any plan is submitted. Then the second piece is, then with all that, the factual base together, you have a master plan that's proposed that was then negotiated with the planning board and the neighbors and everybody else for where things should go, where's the appropriate use of things. And the final step is, as individual buildings are built, those individual buildings get a more detailed site plan review, which is similar to your current ordinance. You know, obviously the first question is it consistent with the master plan, but then there's a little more detailed questions about parking and noise and so forth.
So just while you're there, so anytime an individual building, so to speak, were
Yeah.
to go in, it would have to come back to the planning board for approval.
Yes, yes, to see that it's consistent with the master plan, and so it wouldn't be as complicated as a freestanding building that came before you, because it would have a context of a lot of studies and your understanding would be there. But nevertheless, it would still have to come in and show it's meeting the ordinance, it's meeting what the master plan said and what the law says and so forth. So let me just quickly cover those 3 points in a little more detail. The first step, the facts finding step, provides that the developer needs to provide a map that shows the site in relationship to all activities and properties within 1,000 feet, subdivision, street, zoning districts, everything else. It secondly needs a site inventory plan that shows the natural features, the boundary survey, the ownership, the topography, natural features, wetlands, streams, ponds, scenic views, and so forth, soil survey, vegetative cover, hydrology, airflow, all those kinds of questions. And third, then there's a narrative map that says, based on this inventory and the development constraints of the different pieces of this site, this is what we think these are the opportunities in this part of the site. These are the constraints. These are where problems could be mitigated. This is the road system around it. And here's the issues related to traffic and safety. And that would be, if there's traffic and market studies, that would go in there as well. So in the end, there's a dialogue with the planning board about that. The planning board doesn't need to approve it, but there has to be a discussion, and the planning board at some point says, you know, here are the issues and constraints that your findings represent. Here's what else we need, but it doesn't, there's no vote on it. It just, that ends, and then we go into the next phase, which is the master plan, which has a development narrative, which describes what the development is and how it meets the issues, conceptual site plan showing the road network, utilities and so forth, infrastructure plan, neighborhood impact mitigation plan, showing how traffic, noise, odors, exterior lights, visual impacts will be mitigated with regard to the neighbors, environmental assessment, how that the site and the proposed development will minimize any encroachment on that, and a development and design plan. And the ordinance in itself would also have what are the standards by which the planning board will look at these things, the neighborhood impacts, the traffic impacts, environmental impacts, other things that they will have to develop in the course of developing the ordinance, what those standards are. So then, after the discussion, after the negotiation of the planning board and the developer, a master plan to be approved. And then, as I said, then the developer, as the developer implements that plan, he or she comes back and provides individual buildings, and again, has to revisit a lot of these issues for how that building makes sense. And there may also be times where the developer comes back and says, we need to revise the master plan. And there's a, you know, an ongoing negotiation of that.
So Frank, within that context, I guess.
Yes.
So essentially what you're talking about is some type of a phased approach where they would kind of at least have a rough order of magnitude as to when the different phases were going to take place and so forth. And the overall context is approved, but as each phase begins or whatever, you'd come back and get that approved to the detail level.
Right. That's correct. That's correct. And what I wanted to say about the timing of this as well, so we originally laid out a schedule of bringing several issues per month from now to December with the planning board. And I think based on the questions and issues that were raised last month, I think it would be a easier thing for us to maybe take 2 months right now and simply write an ordinance up, write the entire thing up and give it to you in October. And then the issues, say, of traffic which has come up here, you know, how's that traffic going to be dealt with in the initial inventory? How's it dealt with in the master plan? How's it dealt with in the site plan? And what are the standards? That would all be clear, and it would be easier. I think it would make it an easier discussion because so many of the pieces of this are interrelated. But because it's complicated, we couldn't do it in the next, you know, couple weeks for your September meeting, but would, you know, like to do it for the October meeting. That'd give us 6 weeks to work on that.
Okay. All right.
So that's the overview anyway.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, Larry had kind of asked that at the last meeting, but I guess I'll again ask the board. I think that approach as far as bringing us back kind of a draft raw type approach to what it's going to look like would be good because it, again, gives us something to work with. But right now I have you full screen and I can't see everybody, but I guess I'll start. Larry, do you have any comments?
Had to unmute, Don.
Oh, that's okay.
My question, I guess, Frank, is didn't that mixed-use commercial come in as part of one of the prior or so-called prior comprehensive plans, and therefore it was envisioned by a comprehensive plan?
You know, Larry, actually, I don't know the background of the prior comprehensive plans. This approach, I developed an ordinance like this here in Hallowell, where I live, around a Stevens School development that's nearby. And I know this approach has been used in Scarborough, Gorham, and other places. So that was the logic of using this approach here. It's not necessarily connected to the comprehensive plan.
All right,
Thank
Tommy.
you.
Tommy,
You need to unmute, Tommy.
You're still on mute.
Okay. I'm very interested in the language of the proposed ordinance and the type of performance standards
Yes.
that you're going to include. And I'm glad to see that you're going to do this. And I would say if it took you 3 months to do it, it would be well worth it going down the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where my main interest is right now. Thank you.
Are there ordinances, and I would ask this group too, are there ordinances that you have experience with, that you've worked with, that you find better for the planning board to work, you know, that we should be looking at in terms of models?
That question directed to me or to
to anybody?
to the planners.
Yeah.
Rod or Andrew might have some.
Yeah.
input on that.
I've asked them already, but I just want to make sure that you had a chance if you had ideas too.
Okay, let's move. Scott, do you have anything?
Thoughts on mute?
Yes, it's between my screens. It's tough to find that mute button. Let's see. Get my thoughts together here again. Back to the question about the MUC1. That was a long planning process to come up with that. To come up with the MUC ordinance that you mentioned, which is the 225. 60.7. I know it was at least a year that they were having meetings and discussions on what to do with that quadrant and the other quadrants. So it did take a long time, but you've got that ordinance in here to build off of. So it certainly seems like a potential track. The one thing that I think is going to be the high hurdle with that that you didn't mention is the end of that section, and that's the approval criteria. There's about 4 pages of approval criteria that the planning board needs to have to assess those planned mixed use developments. And I mean that's where the critical information is going to have to be, not only for us but for the public and for everyone else. So I'm sure
And
you.
they're
I'm
based
sure
on
you've
the-
read those.
Yes, I have read those, and they are, rooted in the comprehensive plan at the time for Thompson. And
Right.
these approval criteria have to be rooted in the comprehensive plan that exists, the update that exists now.
Correct. And it does at least contextually applies to some of the a lot of the things we've talked about over the last couple of meetings from the plan. The other comment I have, and that gets back to kind of my comment of earlier when we talked about potentially moving parts of this potentially back into the industrial zone. Right now, that front end of the northern part of the parcel that is being focused on is in the RCU. There are some conditional and permitted uses in the RCU that might align with some of those items in the table, be it the office, equipment maintenance, some of those things. So I don't know if you want to try and consider that as potentially an option of extending that RCU into some of the back lots that you're talking that Crooker currently owns, rather than this larger parcel that is highlighted as one option. I know I think it's called planned commercial development is something that's allowed in RCU, and I'm pretty sure it requires any of the uses within that planned commercial development to be underlying for the zone, but maybe something to take a look at.
Thank you.
And you had mentioned the potential benefit of moving or some of these aspects of the project into the industrial zone. If you go down that road, I mean, we're talking about having performance standards within this new proposed zone, but it may be worth looking at performance standards for that industrial zone also. That would benefit not only the potential project, but also the abutters and residential areas.
Okay. Good points.
Yeah, it's starting to rain, so I muted myself. Thank you, Scott. Bruce, do you have any comments or thoughts?
Nothing that hasn't already been said. I like the general approach, following up on what Tommy was saying, and the options identified by Scott are all, I think, the kind of problem solving that's going to be required.
Yep, I agree. All right, Josh, anything?
No, I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Good, thank you. All right, I guess, do you two have anything more you want to present this evening? Or I think essentially the board agrees, come back in a couple months with a draft, and let's keep having this conversation. But if you have something else, please. Otherwise, I would like to give some time to the public.
I just want to add one other thing about a letter that Tom Sturgeon sent to the board in a response to the questions Norm, Scott, and others were asking about what's going to happen at the existing site. And he tries to clarify that it's the intention of the corporation to develop it as a mixed-use site. But the issue of timing, when it can be sold, who's going to buy it, what's going on in the current economy, is very difficult to pin down or make a commitment about at this point. But he obviously, Tom is his intent. He's worked with developers already. His intent is to redevelop that as a mixed-use site as soon as the economy allows it. That's all. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Okay, then I'll just, if the board doesn't object, I'd like to take public comment. All right, hearing none, I guess, Andrew, are you running this or is Rod?
I am, yep. We have one raised hand at the time. This is Wendy Schofield. Wendy, please state your name and address.
Did you bring Wendy in? She's on mute on my screen anyway.
Yeah, it takes, I don't know, 10 seconds or so for it to go on mute. Wendy?
Are we unmuted?
Yes.
Thank you. This is her husband, Kevin, actually. My name's Kevin Schofield. We live at 406 Lewiston Road. In reviewing some documentation recently, I read some letters where it indicates that some people's property would have to be rezoned against their wishes in order to accomplish this, accommodate this project. Is that accurate?
Frank, you want to respond to that?
No, that isn't accurate, Kevin. I think these are, at this point in time, this would be desirable from the point of view of the developer. If certain properties are unavailable, the zone could be adjusted at that point.
So at this point, nobody's property would have to be rezoned at all to accommodate this project?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, there's not a, yeah, it's, if the developer can't use the property, there's no point in zoning it.
Okay, so Kevin, did we get your thoughts?
You got my thoughts. I'm not sure I got a thorough answer that I was looking for at this point in time, but thank you.
All right, thank you. So Andrew, before you bring anybody else in, I guess, are we having give and take, or are we taking comments and responding at a later date? I don't want to mess up your process here.
I think it would be ideal just to receive the comments. Probably avoiding a back and forth will get us through allowing most people to be able to speak tonight, which I think is important.
All right, well, I will quit asking for responses then. If you can sort of orchestrate it going forward.
I have Patricia Maloney.
Yeah, hi. I live on Bridge Street, 31 Bridge Street in Topsom. And my concern is really about traffic. When there's a huge change, as you're proposing, to a neighborhood, traffic increases exponentially. And I see that you don't have really a kind of a traffic impact yet done on the traffic estimates. So I'd be curious to see what that is for the neighbors. And I have a question about, so I have a few questions and I don't need answers, but I want to get the questions written down. Who are the owners? You keep talking about Crooker property, but I understand that it's not the Crookers who own this property anymore. So I think it's important that the public know who owns this property. The other question I have is about Jack's Pit, which seems to be on the Androscoggin River. Am I correct in that, Rob? Or somebody?
That's correct.
Okay, so if it's on the Androscoggin River, I'd like to know how that fits in with the 2018 comprehensive plan, which is another real concern that I have. That was only 2 years ago. I mean, it seems like 2 years ago sometimes in people's minds is a long time ago. That's not a long time ago. What kind of changes have happened to make the discussion that we've been hearing tonight seem somewhat irrelevant to the 2018 comprehensive plan? I really can't imagine that. But back to the Jack's Pit on the river, has there been any discussion with any of the land trusts about turning 20 to 100 acres of land into land trust property so that real trails can be put in that area, which would benefit the entire town? And certainly, as we see with land trusts these days, it would definitely benefit the whole state. So I think that better trail access is really important. And I heard you mention something about contact with CMP as an abutter. We all know that CMP is not doing very well right now, so I question that whole process, and I have no idea how important CMP is as an abutter. To me, the most important group of people who are abutters are the neighbors who own property there, who are paying taxes there. What is the approval criteria? And lastly, who needs to approve the final plan? And then what is the process for having the public understand what's going on right now? I've talked to a few friends who have not even heard about this. I am involved with my community because I love Topsom and I love my neighbors. But a lot of people who I've spoken to have not heard about this at all. I think this information has got to be made more public. And I wondered if there is somebody on our list of people who are attending tonight is representing the press. Thank you.
Have Cindy Ackerman next.
Hi, my name is Cindy Ackerman. I live on 41 Ivanhoe Drive. Every time I leave Ivanhoe Drive, I do see yellow Crooker trucks going by both directions. That does not bother me. What would bother me is if you changed our neighborhood surroundings into an industrial site. It's beautiful farmland. I agree we need more green space in Topsom. I agree with Pat. Pat and I were on the board of Save Our Topsom many years ago. We think one of Topsom's greatest assets is our land. The river is a great fishery. I'm sure you'll find lots of deer yards and the old flag farms. There's a lot of natural resources that Topsom could use to benefit to attract more people, maybe even put in some housing, more trails, but continue to have more residential. And I really hope the planning board will really listen to the public. I understand businesses are important, but I don't see any need for Crooker to move. If they feel that they need to, I don't know where else they could expand. But this 2018 plan that the whole town voted on and approved, I don't think should be uprooted just because of one business in Topsom, Maine. Thank you for your time.
Right, we have Shelley Garrett next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome, thanks. Well, I am really confused by this. We moved here in December from Nebraska, and when we moved here, you know, it was a residential area, and we knew nothing of this. And then I just can't understand in what world you can do that to people. You can just change. Our house value is gonna plummet. And we moved to this house, and it's 5,000 square feet. It's huge. And we did that because my mom has terminal cancer, and that way she kind of has her own little suite. So we're living here, and then we have this fear all the time that all of a sudden it's right behind our house when I look at it too, right there. And like the booms that we hear already down from the quarry that's quite a ways down from us shake our house. So if they're gonna put this right behind my house, how can they tell me they're gonna have some noise buffer? It shakes our house already. I just am appalled. I know that we lived in Nebraska where they care about people and they're nice. And I was told the East Coast, you know, they're kind of mean. And I didn't believe that until this stuff. It's greed. It's absolute greed. And I don't get it. I don't know why you're wasting any time on this. Crooker wants to make more money. Go put their thing out in the middle of nowhere. Why? And it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And the lady that was just talking about the press, that needs to happen. I know in one of the last meetings, a couple meetings ago, Crooker said that, well, we don't want to do that yet because, you know, it's not necessary. Well, it is too necessary. Nobody's going to want to have that fear that just because somebody wants to make more money, they can take your house, basically. Take everything that you worked for. And it's just, I think the whole community needs to know, and they need to know immediately. It's just super scary and super disappointing. Thank you for listening.
We have Karen McLean.
Hi, this is Karen McLean. Can you hear me?
Yes, go for it. And please get your address too.
Yes, I am the caregiver for my mom and dad. My dad died last September. Most people in Pejevskit knew my dad was Wilbur F. Wilson. My mom is Gloria E. Wilson. I have been living in this house for almost 2 years and have watched the different things that have happened, with Crooker just blasting to destroying both of my father's wells. The other thing I want to point out is if you rezone like you allowed years ago with Grimmel Industries when they came into Pejevskit, which they have ruined, they took all kinds of historic homes down. And I agree with Shelley and everybody else. I don't know why we're wasting all this time. They stay where they're at or they go up to Jack's Pit. There is absolutely no need of destroying the whole back road. You're never going to get the land. I'm going to tell you, on the corner of Benner House Cross, I know the people. They're not going to get the land. I don't know why we're even wasting time. And I'm sorry, I'm very angry, very angry. I'm very angry for 2 wells of my dad's being destroyed by Crooker, and that's just blasting. My mom has lived in this house for 89 years, her whole life. And, you know, my dad died knowing that Crooker was trying to do this and couldn't understand. You know, he was good friends with Harry Crooker. Crooker is only owned, as far as I know, by one Crooker now, and all, I'm going to say, minions. And I'm just going to end this right now because I'm really angry. This just needs to stop. Why is the town just trying to destroy it for the residents? It's greed, as Shelley said. Thank you for your time, and I'm sorry I got upset.
All right, we have Allison Castillo.
Yeah, hi, thanks. It is Allison Castillo, and I am at 647 River Road. I just wanted to speak to a few of the bullets in the presentation that Reagan shared with us tonight, specifically around the associated benefits to the town. One of the bullets on there is specific to the trucks on River Road and how that could be alleviated. And I understand that that could be a perceived benefit, but as someone who is on River Road in the direct path of those trucks that go by every day, we don't mind them. It's a part of living here. They were here before us in that case. In this case, we've been here for a few years now. We knew about those trucks when we purchased our home. We agreed that that was something that we were willing to deal with as residents of this neighborhood. And really, they don't bother us. They are great at following the, what is it called? The quiet zone rules. They're great at following the speed limit. They do help to slow down our traffic on our road from people that don't want to follow the speed limit. So we have some type of strange appreciation actually for those trucks. So I would just give that context as a first person opinion of someone who experiences that, since I know that you folks don't have that that perspective. In terms of other benefits too, the dangerous intersection, I think it was at Meadow Cross. I'm not familiar with that being a dangerous intersection, so I think I was just putting the question out to where is that coming from, and just kind of out of curiosity, really, again, where is that coming from and what are the issues with that? Just as somebody in the neighborhood, I'd like to be aware if we do have a dangerous intersection that has gone unaddressed up to now. Let's see what else I've got. Oh yes, so you mentioned earlier as well that the whole idea and goal is to relocate to a place that is more efficient and cost effective for Crooker to do business, which I completely understand. However, it seems as though the trade-off for Crooker to move to a place that is more efficient and cost-effective is so out of balance with the negative impacts on the community, the people in the community, the environment of the community, the integrity of the community, the structure, having to completely redo roads, things like that. It just, the trade-off for one business to find more efficiencies and be more cost-effective isn't there. I don't foresee a time that it's ever going to be there, to be totally honest with you, which so I have to just echo what I've heard my neighbor saying tonight is it really does feel like this has been a huge waste of time We have invested so much time listening to these discussions. Look how many people are attending tonight on the board and in the community. That's how many hours of time that are being put into listening to this, stressing about this, fearing this, worrying about this, talking about this with our neighbors. The time that's already gone into it is crazy. It's crazy that we're having these discussions when the properties that are needed aren't owned. The understanding of the impacts to things like wetlands aren't even understood. It's just kind of mind-boggling to me. And again, I know you've heard that from some of the neighbors already, but just to kind of reiterate what they've already said. I think that's everything I really wanted to get out there for tonight, but you know, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to everybody, and you know, I would love it if this could be our last session about this, but I have a feeling it won't be.
At this time, I don't see any other raised hands. So if there's a member of, yep, okay. Come on down, James Temple.
Yeah, Jim Temple. I live at 14 Coville Road. And I just have a couple of things I'd like to talk about. I'd like to go back, and somebody mentioned that there's a lot of people that don't know about this, that are going to be affected. And I mentioned this at the last meeting, that I think there should be a notice that goes out to people in the Ivanhoe Coville area, the River Road, 196, and that tells them about it. I think you'd end up with a lot more people on this meeting. There's also a whole bunch of people in this area, like my neighbor, who wouldn't be able to get on a Zoom meeting. They don't have a computer, they're elderly, and it would certainly infect them. Second point would be, it seems a little unusual for Crooker to want to move unless one of their ultimate goals is to increase business. And doing a traffic study on what they have now, I don't think will show what the impact will actually be with it. And then at that point, if you're asking Crooker, it's just their conjecture with it. Noise is one of the issues that I can see being here. We're getting a little bit of taste of that now with the water district building there. I guess it's a new filtration plant. I can tell you that the backup alarms on the trucks are very wonderful to hear all day with it, and the stuff that's going on there. So we're getting a little taste of that. The other question, I hear a lot of mitigation about dust and traffic and like that, but nobody's mentioned, I believe the water district has wells there that our drinking water is from. Somewhere on the site, I saw the aquifer pictures, which for some reason don't run under my house. And I can tell you that when the power's out, if you'd like to come over and help me bail my basement, the aquifer is certainly near my house, and it would be very near where Crooker wants to put in. And will that affect our water supply with their general use of the property? And will it affect our water supply if they have some type of industrial accident? Again, I think this is a lot of treading water, and it seems to me they just want to throw a transparency over the zoning and say, well, we're going to zone in here somewhere, and we ought to make this work. Thank you for your time.
I have Robin Brooks next.
There. Good evening, Chairman Span and Planning Board members and Andrew. Robin Brooks, 47 Ivanhoe Drive. And I'm just going to say I support all the comments to date this evening. There's a lot of emotion. This has been stressful for me and my family for the past 3 years. I was one of the organizers of the petition. We had, I think, over 300 signatures. Citizens from all over town opposing this rezoning at the time. Crooker then withdrew the proposal, but I don't see any substantive change to their general goal, which is to move their operations. And as my neighbor Jim said, are they trying to expand? It's likely that they're trying to expand, so we're going to see even more trucking and more pollution. What I'm curious, and I think is really pertinent since TDI is all over this and thinks it's a great idea, is how much is going to actually be the cost to the taxpayers? What kind of TIF are they going to ask for? How much are we going to have see our taxes increase because Crooker needs help doing all the road work and you know, getting the dangerous intersection fixed. I've driven that intersection for years. I used to commute to Lisbon, and coming from the other side of the road, never had trouble turning right. Sometimes it takes a little while to turn left when BIW is coming out of work in the first shift, but essentially that's pretty quiet. There is a steep curve that, when you're coming from Lisbon, that comes right into that intersection. I just, I don't know what the actual statistics are. I think we all should know how dangerous it is and how many accidents are there. There's just a lot of issues. Primarily, I'm concerned for the health and well-being of myself and my neighbors. I think we all deserve to live in the quiet, kind of semi-rural area that we invested in. And I just don't see this in the writing on the wall in our comp plan. And I don't see why we should bend for a company's profit motive. So thank you for listening.
We have Louis Larios.
Hello, my name is Louis Larios. I live at 2 Berkeley Lane, Topsom, Maine. And when I'm sitting in my newly renovated basement, I can hear the explosions from Crooker. We just sheetrocked our whole basement, and I'm wondering when I start getting cracks in my basement walls, because I can actually feel it and hear it. But in reference to people going to the media about this, let us not forget that there is an ulterior motive in Crooker moving out of his present location, and that is all the money to be made from the development once he leaves that area. So I do believe that that should be brought up in the future if we decide to go super public. Thank you very much.
I have Karen McLean.
Hi, I'm sorry about the emotion before. I just want to add is that I'm 56 years old. I grew up in Pejepscot. My mom and dad, like I said, my mom has lived here her whole life. It's just a shame. Crooker is down there by the Topsom Fair Mall. That's industrial. You expect all the noise and everything. The trucks going by out on River Road. There's, that's a little bit of noise there. That's not much. I just don't understand, other than greed. In Crooker, I get the town could make money off Crooker, but don't sacrifice the people that live in the town of Topsom. This is a beautiful town. I live in Raymond, but I'm taking care of my mom, so I consider myself a resident of being here 2 years. It just makes me sick that Crooker could just take over like this and go and buy people's land, make promises. They're not doing it. I mean, this is hearsay, I know, but it shouldn't go any further. Should be end of discussion. Why are we wasting everybody's time because we're all scared. We're all fighting this when we could have just spent 2 hours doing something we wanted to do and not in a meeting. And I thank you for the time again for letting me speak. It's a real emotional thing, really. Thank you.
Can I have Karen McLean's address, please? Hello?
Patty, hang on 1 second. I'll pull her back up.
Thank you.
All right, Patty. It's under my mom, but I've been here for 2 years. Everybody knows in the whole neighborhood. It's 25. And then you know how to spell Pejepscot? You're muted.
She got it. Thank you.
Have Dan Flagg Jr.
All right, can everyone hear me?
You good to go?
Okay, great. So I just wanted to kind of comment on the proposed rezoning map. I'm sorry, I'm Dan Flagg, 32 Beechwood Drive. I grew up at 491 River Road next to the farmhouse where my parents still live. They've lived there since 1985. So the proposal going on right now has been going on in different forms for 2+ years now. And there's nothing about this rezoning proposal that follows the comprehensive plan for zoning changes in this location in Topsom. In the proposal they're putting forth tonight is even more unreasonable and divergent from the comp plan with each variation of it, beginning in 2018. They're now proposing a larger area, 150 acres or so, that includes the suburban residential and rural commercial zones on 196 within the suburban rural limited sector called for in the master plan updated 2019. This proposal engulfs the River Road neighborhood and would surround the residential area with two different industrial zones, not just one. And approximately 2,600 feet of new industrial zone road frontage would occur on the south side of River Road and approximately 1,600 feet on the opposite north side of River Road. The comp plan does not call for bringing the new industrial zone to River Road or 196 at the proposed location. On River Road, the new industrial zone road frontage includes or abuts 16 residential houses, including 4 developed properties that Crooker doesn't own. 3 of those properties are my family members, and they're not selling to Crooker. Crooker has gone out of their way with this proposal to extend their proposed industrial zone to abutting residential property lines in a long stretch of River Road. Why do they need to extend the industrial zone 2,600 feet on River Road? And why are they proposing to rezone 2,300 feet of rural commercial use zone frontage on 196, which they don't own and they won't? And why do they need to rezone the field on River Road, covered with wetlands and streams with road frontage on River Road, to an industrial zone? It makes no sense to anyone. And what is the goal of surrounding my parents' property at 491 River Road with industrial zoning and a private tunnel haul road next to their house when they are currently one of the nearest neighbors to the quarry and blasting? Is that part of Crooker's plan to protect the neighbors, like my parents, as Crooker suggested in their letter by Tom Sturgeon on August 1st? Doesn't seem like protection to the neighbors to me. Can anyone really say with a straight face that this proposal is consistent with the comp plan with respect to rezoning the area of Topsom to a new industrial zone? The answer is emphatically no. As far as the mixed-use commercial zone approach that Mr. O'Hara has proposed, the biggest disconnect with that is the MUC1 has been in the comp plan since 2005. And that process has been in the comp plan, whereas this, we just got done with the 2019 update, and it's limited growth. It is not industrial. So the fact that they're trying to adopt a planned mixed-use ordinance model to a planned industrial zone development located in the rural suburban limited growth sector of the 2019 comp plan is an absolute stretch by any standard. If this rezoning was so important to Crooker, they should have participated in the comp plan process with respect to the future land use policy map development in 2019, as the opposition, including myself, participated in the process. They didn't participate, so we can only assume they are content with going somewhere else in Topsom available to them, i.e. Jack's Pit, or stay at their current location for the indefinite future, as they stated in their letter dated August 1st, 2020. In closing, it's obviously apparent after 2 years plus of presenting this proposal in different forms that it doesn't fit the neighborhood, and the fact is supported by the current zoning in the comprehensive plan. The neighborhood opposition has been organized and extensive for 2 years, and it will continue to be so in the future. The proposal cannot be consistent with the comp plan, no matter how they try to package up this proposal and change the approach of whatever they're doing now. The idea that studies must be deferred to site plan application process after the rezoning occurs is absurd and suggests they're not confident in the outcome. I'm an engineering consultant with 16 years experience, and I do planning studies routinely to plan design projects for my clients well in advance of planning board site plan applications. The planning board must follow the comp plan and concede that the neighborhood will never support this rezoning, and endorsement of this proposal would disregard the public process of developing the 2019 comprehensive plan update and all that went into developing that document, including the cost to the taxpayers of Topsom. Thank you.
I don't have any other raised hands at this time. I have Shelley Garrett.
Hi, thanks again for taking comments. But then even with thanking you, I still just don't understand. And you're hearing all this. Do any of you people live in this zone? Is it going to affect you? How would you like it if this was a different company 2 years from now, right behind your house? How about you, Miss Reagan? Do you want that? How do you sleep at night? I get it that it's, I don't get it. I guess I don't understand.
I have Dan Flagg Jr.
Sorry, I just have a few more things to say here. As far as the traffic and the dangerous intersection discussion, you know, really traffic, and there's been a lot of talk about that tonight, and certainly traffic studies need to be done. You know, an intersection study, a feasibility study on Route 196, whether it's a signalized intersection or roundabout, there's going to be private property impacted by this proposal. And it would absolutely be irresponsible to approve this rezoning without understanding the overall impact of private property. And I also want to add, it's safe to assume, and I absolutely know it's going to happen, that there's going to be at least one access road from this new industrial zone onto River Road. Because there's extensive industrial frontage, they're going to need emergency access, which is going to maintain a presence of Crooker vehicles on River Road and will not eliminate it altogether. And finally, there's no evidence presented they could even construct an entrance on Route 196 in the future, since they don't own any road frontage on 196. The use of the term dangerous intersection is overstated in the comp plan and not supported by any DOT determination or traffic study, to my knowledge. But there could be information out there, but it's not in the comp plan. There have been no engineering studies that suggest this project would improve Route 196 safety or not negatively impact traffic on River Road, other than taking Crooker's word for it, which we know how that has worked out for many of the abutters. The Crooker trucks drive 25 miles an hour on 3,400 feet of River Road from Quarry Road to Route 196. That's 25 miles an hour. Anyone that stands out there sees that, and the neighbors see that is like the best speed traffic calming device that we actually have on River Road. Is it really a reasonable trade-off to surround a neighborhood with the quarry and Crooker's entire operation to eliminate 25-mile-per-hour truck traffic on a short stretch of River Road that actually calms the speed? Getting to the emissions argument.
So Dan, I think you've had more than your fair share. If you have some more comments, please write them and send them, and they will get posted.
Let me wrap this one up, Don. It will take.
You've wrapped up twice now, right? So I think whatever else you have, please send it, and it will get posted. Shelley, your comments were inappropriate. I don't want any more personal attacks or anything like that on any of these board members or our presenters. It's just inappropriate to be attacking people like that. So if we can't keep it civil, we'll stop taking the comments, because this is a workshop and we don't have to take comments.
Do have a raised hand from Ron Colby. Go ahead, Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby, can you hear us? Okay. I have Lori Howard.
Lori, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just got the message to unmute. My name is Lori Howard. I live at 23 White House Crossing Road here in Topsom. About the intersection that they consider dangerous. That intersection is 500 feet from my property. It is not that dangerous, but it will be if we have all these trucks coming in and out from Crooker and their customers. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone that wants to speak that hasn't spoken? We're not going to take any more second comments this evening.
You have Dot Bowie.
Hi, good evening. In regards to the traffic flow, I did the math on the comp plan, page 67, which talks about the safe streets, and page 63, which talks about annual traffic daily flow. There have been 1 in 6,000 drivers accident at the intersection of White House Crossing and 196. There has been 1 in 3,750 drivers at River Road and 196. If you look at Middlesex and Bay Park, it's 1 in 625. If you look at 201 in Meadow Road, it's 1 in 1,200. If you look at Bisson Farm in Meadow Road, it's 1 in 417. So if you do the math and you look at the maps that are in the comp plan, these 2 intersections are not the most dangerous in our town. Thank you. They don't warrant this much of a change of neighborhoods.
We have Ron Colby. Mr. Colby, going ahead. Mr. Colby, we can't hear you, unfortunately. If you'd like to send your comments again to me by email, I'll make sure that they get to the board. But we're having a hard time hearing you. Are there any other raised hands to speak? Folks who have not spoken before? Don, I don't see any other raised hands.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would like to thank everyone for their participation and their comments. I would encourage everyone to go and submit comments if you haven't had a chance to speak them, or you want to get them in front of us. Please email planning@topsommaine.com, and the website continues to be www.topsommaine.com/crooker, where everything is posted. So please do get your input into that site and to our planning staff. And I guess I'm ready to adjourn unless anyone from the board sees otherwise, or unless Frank or Reagan, you have anything you'd like to say. All right, seeing none, and we'll see you in October.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you to the public comments.
All right, thank you. All right, good night all.